Welcome to the Real CP Show. I'm your host, CP. In today's topic, this particular born and raised Benin fleer, or his parents fled from Benin to a surrounding country. But now, as he had the opportunity to flee to America, off what Black Americans have already stood and created socially, economically, collegiately, politically, he was able to flee to the United States and go to one of those colleges, and most likely went through a people of color minority switchery category to get a full ride scholarship that should have went to a Black American when he went to Connecticut. But this is what numbers of these fleers are like. They sit back, they flee when opportunity comes up, and they ride right along on the wagon that Black Americans have already built up in America. And even with this particular fleer, it's really not necessarily about him personally. Could care less of a dog tails about him, right? Because when the KKK people look at someone like this, they see nasty, different versions of a Negro. He's just been allowed to think he is important, and he's really, truly not. But at the same time, there is a very importantness about these type of fleers, because these different kind of fleers are parasitic, deadly, poisonous type of destructive thought pattern type of individuals. And they have a very commonality, and that is the hatred of anti-American Blacks, because Black Americans do not flee on that situation, right? So these are people that have their internal hatred toward American Blacks, right? Similar to this right here. Just a version within Africanism, the one this applies to, that he has a hatred for, right? Yes, yes. Like, look at this particular image right here. Or the words, I know I am technically a fleer from Benin, while I have the nerve to spew out vitriol toward Black Americans who built up America before I was ever thought of. But I say they have no culture, while I come from tribalism, while I parakeet other topics also, pretending I am smart. Yes, these fleers have a vitriol, demonic hatred of Black Americans, right? On this situation. And the thing about it is, when I sit there and look upon this particular fleer from Benin, and let me get this very straightforward. I'm not talking about the good numbers of Benin type people. Credit given to them. So that's out the way. Now, the thing about it with this particular fleer of Franck Zanu on this situation, let me tell you what I smell when I sit there and look at Franck Zanu. I smell informant. What do you say? What do you smell? I smell informant. When I sit there and look upon the aura of Franck Zanu on that situation, on that. Because when it comes down to it, Franck Zanu type of people who have their own self-hatred toward their own African personnel, who they can't even stand their own numbers of African personnel, right? Because they still come from a major tribalism background. And even in Benin, Benin has several dozens of tribes. And as I'm about to read some stuff or show some stuff, he really never talks about which tribe he really comes from. Oh, Franck Zanu is a very sneaky one, like some like-minded personnel like him. See, they don't like really talking about too much of their tribe specifically on that because they're sneaky like that. See, these are the ones that are allowed by supremacists to come over to America, right? After it's already been built up by Black Americans, basically, besides certain ones within predominate culture, right? But these type of tethers, Black adjacent hotters, they come way down the road after it's already been built up, and they get a chance to benefit off of Black pain. And unfortunately, there are millions within the American Blackism that still are a little naive on what's going on because there's no such thing as a truly Pan-Africanism. There are numbers of people within Africa who don't even like to be called Africans, let alone don't even think about calling many types of Africans Pan-Africanism. They'd be like, man, you don't stop talking about no stupid Pan-Africanism. That's some old archaic stuff that really never even existed. They don't like talking about that, just like there's no such thing as Pan-Caribbeanism, right? Don't even sound right. There are numbers of Caribbean islands that don't like other Caribbean islands, right? And Africa is made up of what, 50 some plus countries on that? Hundreds of different languages, several hundreds of different tribes. There is no Pan-African love. And that would include Benin. Again, I'm not talking about some of the good Benin people. I'm talking about the ones like this fleer, Franck Zanu, that fled. His family fled to a neighboring country, right? Do you think they didn't sit around and say, you know what? No, we're part of other tribes. We're going to stay in Benin with people that's supposed to look like us, and we're going to get this corruption. We're going to get these war-torn situations together. No, they fled. So they got the nerve to sit there and try to talk about Black Americans, these Black adjacent hodders, on this situation. And that is some very deadly people because, again, when I sit there and look at this aura of Franck Zanu, not him personally, can care less, but his aura and his vitriol, little anti-American Blackism, and his little self-hatred vitriol, even towards some numbers of his African supposed to be counterparts, again, this is what I smell on him. Infiltrator. Yes. So the thing about it is, let me go ahead and share my screen because, again, he has an aura. Look at this. Uh-huh. All right, then. Yes. Yes. So let me go ahead and share my screen on this. There are some various things I want to show, but I don't know if I'm going to show all of them because I'm just not going to do that. I don't think I am. Just depend. But first, let me sit there and just share my screen with this part. I'm going to try to make this real short on this part. I'm just going to read just a few minutes because there's another gentleman I want to play some of on this podcast. It's a real good podcast that did on this. And I'm also setting the direction up on this. Franck Zanu. Make sure you can see that on this. See, it talks about Franck Zanu, a thought-provoking, inspirational speaker. I'm not going to read all this. I'm just reading just a piece to kind of set the direction up because there's another gentleman, again, I want to sit there and play from the podcast where they kind of start off with something like this, but some of the things they're gonna talk about. So just in general, Franck Zanu, thought-provoking, inspirational speaker. Franck Zanu, whatever this last name is different. He is intense, explosive, analytical, and deeply thought-provoking. He is a life coach, inspirational speaker to who, and a human development consultant that he fled. He's a fleer. He does not motivate. He inspires you to have a motive to act. He fled. I wouldn't even pay $2 to listen to him speak because I don't think I look at him as a fleer. He's a fleer. His family was a fleer on that from people that look like him in Benin. And I'm going to sit there and show you somebody that asked him to introduce himself because for most of the time, if you look him up, man, it's almost like trying to find a needle in 4-foot piece of water, trying to find out a little bit about his background because he makes sure not to talk about it too much. These fleers are very cowardly and they're very sneaky. So the thing about it is, skipping all that, His path is painted with many colors, professionally and culturally. It's like, who the freak wrote this? He didn't write this. This sounds like almost like a mystery type writer. He is a U.S. citizen born in the Republic of Benin, West Africa, that he fled from, that his family fled. He has worked as a reporter for the, anyway, all that stuff to say on this side is what I want to really start getting into. So his awards, he has received numerous awards and citations, including 2011 Outstanding Immigrant Award. So he's playing both sides. 2010 Most Outstanding Personality for Community Development, Infiltrator. 2009 Black Pride. What does that mean? Right? See how the generic, like Black Pride, they talking about terms lifestyle category, Black Pride Award. 2006 Public Leadership Award from U.S. White House. I guess. 2007 Black History Lecture Award. 2005 Conscious Award. Please. I don't think so. Again, I wouldn't trust him if there was a word trust on his forehead. Because again, something about, hold on, let me close this. Let me close this out because I got too many different things going on in the background on this situation. Give me a second here. Let me go back here. So the thing about it is, again, when I sit there and look upon him, when I look upon Franck Zanu again, I sit there and see this as well. This is what I see. At the same time, when I sit there and observe him, his aura, I smell infiltrator. Yes, yes. So let me go ahead and share my screen to this other gentleman that did a great show on some before I started showing some stuff on him, on Frank. So let me start right here. Again, he's going to say, this gentleman is going to say it's a piece of what I was going over, just that little piece there, but he's going to go in and show a little bit of the video. And after that, I'm going to go ahead and start going to the main parts of this story I'm talk about.
Just remember your database. He's a naturalized citizen, but he is from Benin, West Africa. And if you know your history of the transatlantic slave trade, even if you watch the movie, the Woman King, then you already know where we're going with that part of it. All right. So let's go on and get to the video in question. Let me go ahead and get this video up so y'all can see this. And like I say, just remember what we said earlier. Okay, so let's cue this up.
Right. So with time, you become Ebonics. Nobody has anything. They are now still using 2 English names. They are now having only Christianity as their religion. They can remember their history, culture, traditions, customs. So you have no foundation, is what I'm trying to say. African Americans in this country are the only groups. They have no culture. It depends on who you meet, where you meet them.
You see what this fool said? This fool, this infiltrator, this vitriol anti-American black tether, black adjacent hotter, runner, talks about how black Americans don't have a culture. You mean the same black Americans before his moms and his dad got together to produce this little fleer, right? But they fled, that black America's already building America up. You mean same black America don't have a culture that built up America, right? Besides certain ones within the Paname's culture for centuries. Let's use our 1600s for a second. Who was over in America in the 1600s on that situation? The 3 main people in America was what we call white, whatever that's supposed to mean, because there are various types of what we call Anglos that also fled from their own various countries. And numbers of them, many numbers of Anglos do not know their own history. Let me repeat this. Many numbers of Anglo type personnel in America do not know their own history on that. So this little flea or tether got the nerve to say, oh, black Americans don't know their culture. This fool is a fool. When if his own family, his mom and daddy, if you say, hey, Fleer mom, Fleer dad? Who was your great-great-great-grandmother? Who's your great-great-great-grandfather? Right? They'd be like, we don't know. Because Benin only got their independence, wink, wink, supposedly from France in 1960, but their official language is still French, right? Because before that, they're supposed to be the kingdom of Dahomey, which is supposed to be a great kingdom. But for generations, how many of them sit there and sold out their own people to be put on slave ships? So this little fleer should be looked upon as that your own damn people don't even know their own damn history, because they were colonized gigantically. And what became Benin, they were also, along with some other places along that coast, were called the slave coast. So this fool got the nerve to talk about black Americans not the culture. This fool is crazy, because this utilizes the 1600s. In the 1600s, there was no such thing as Benin. So who this fool talking about? But at the same time, the 1600s, black Americans still did have their own unique culture that they also was building upon. Right? This fool is crazy. Who the hell he think was built America in the 1600s? Because only three main people was whites. That's the general terminology. Native Americans, I don't think they weren't building no country like that. And three was black Americans. They were the only three cultures. Not because they was from various sections of Africa. I don't think so. The 1600s, black Americans became their own black Americanist uniqueness already on that situation, right? So this fool is crazy talking about black Americans don't have a culture. When this fool, again, he's a fleer from Benin. You see how these fools go, right? So for what that the black American culture creating by their own cultures, because culture is not a one thing in situations like that. See, in his own little tribalism, see, they had their own little one piece of outfit and one piece of food and something like that, and going through extreme poverty, which I'm gonna sit there and show you something in a little bit. This fool didn't have no real culture themselves, right? They didn't have anything that truly just, oh wow, his tribe was gigantically great. Please, right? But these little fleers, boy, they got some nerve to tell black people they don't have a culture.
But currently, there's not an African American culture.
No.
Yes, there is.
What is it?
Do you see this fool? He said, what is it? You mean the achievements that black Americans are already doing before his ass was even born, before his mom and daddy fled, right, to the neighboring country, or his mom fled with this little fleer, little baby of him and they arms to one of the neighboring countries because they couldn't sit there and get stuff together in their own war-torn country by other people that look like them. But this fool talking about black Americans don't have a culture. This fool is crazy, right? You mean the same culture that sit there and fought in every single war? That's the same personnel that don't have a culture, right? You mean the same thing? They sit there and build their own communities in many other cities and towns in America, right? Beyond that, numbers of there's no such thing as African towns before there are black American towns. I mean, that's the same people that have a culture. The same people that also created their own type of cars, a car themselves, right? They had their own hotels, their own motels, right? Had their own airfield, stuff like that. You mean the same ones like that don't have a culture, right? This fool is crazy. This fool sounds like an infiltrator, right? And you look at him, he just looks like a pathetic infiltrator to me.
Name two value systems in the African American culture.
Value system?
Yes. Name two taboos in the African American culture system.
He can't even talk right. He's allowed to sit there and do that. I'm telling you, in the overall amount with an American system, he could not go to most other places, let alone his little vitriol anti-American black self. He couldn't go to most southern cities and towns and talk like that. Let alone he goes try to play that little. He actually wants to be Anglo so bad, right? You can smell it. But he couldn't go out the hours in certain towns, should we say, out the dark, right? He couldn't go to no sundown towns talking that talking some of that nonsense. He actually thinks he is someone that people can accommodate, or they want to be around him like that. And the predominate culture overall, looking at him as nothingness, right?
Name 2 traditions, by the way, in the African American culture system. Okay, forget it. Name 2 customs in the African American culture. Look, I'm being.
He said, name 2 customs. This fool is crazy, right? You mean prior to the 1980s, when Black Americans gigantically were all out together already, and they had their own customs, their own traditions. And this fool talking about what do they have, what do they do? So he thought this Black Americans for centuries were just kind of walking around, not doing nothing, right? They's not doing nothing, right? What it's like, what he need to be sitting there worried about was why his ass fled, or his mama or daddy fled. So he's supposed to be all that with his traditions. Well, his not tradition, is his belief not sit there and not protect him from other war-torn tribalism type people? This fool is crazy. Black Americans had their own type of traditions already and cultures already before his ass was even thought of like that. And for centuries, Black Americans had their own cultural traditions inside of them. This fool is crazy.
It's serious. And
No,
I'm
but I
telling
mean,
you,
I'm thinking about
yes,
it.
there is no value for freedom if you don't understand what it is. The concept of free. You have to have a foundation on which it would balance when you ask for it. Civil rights, they give it to you. You have no culture. Nancy, you've been here, born here. Why would you be surprised if I say African Americans don't have a culture?
This fool talking about Black Americans don't have a culture. What this fool thinks civil rights came from? From certain parts of Pan-Africanism? I don't think so, right? When you look at him, I'm telling you, man, it's a nauseatingness when I look at him. Because I'm like, I sit there and see someone that wish they can just peel their whole melanation off, and they wish they can just paint themselves a cloud color, right? But he can't. And then when you hear that type of accent in that situation, and there are quite a number of people in this country that look at him like, man, you yucky cow manure type, ill, right? But but there are certain people, supremacists and some other Anglo type people, some other people that have allowed him to sit there and talk like this, right? Again, he's not even a latecomer, he's a gigantic latecomer. And he's sitting there asking this young adult woman who's not even Black American about Black American culture. But he comes from Benin, right? And he's supposed to have a culture, right? I don't think so, because he was all that. Then he or his mama or daddy didn't have to flee. They should have stayed in Benin then and maintain their own culture, because they didn't have a freaking culture like that. They had a tribalismness.
What, twerking? So anything
but I feel like African American culture has definitely
you say
mainstream.
No, you say the word, the African American culture. What is it?
First of all, and that word needs to be thrown out somewhere too. African American is an archaic terminology. You can have 2 Indian people come from India, and 2 Indian people can come to various parts of Africa, which they are doing a lot, and sit there and have a baby and say, you know what? No, we're gonna sit here for a while and get some resources, and then we're gonna go to America. That baby is not considered Indian now, or it's Indian technically, but they can say, well, then they're in America, so that baby now from those 2 Indian parents, now that baby is African American. You can have 2 Chinese people can go to Africa, and they should have taken over various parts of Africa left and right. So where is this damn stupid ass fool, this little vitriol anti-American Black Benin fleer, right? He's not sitting there telling another African personnel, hey, y'all stop the Chinese invasion that's coming over to more parts of Africa. But I make that point. So 2 Chinese personnel come to Africa, and they produce a child, right? And in South Africa, and many years ago, I saw this a long time ago, where there had been numbers of Chinese personnel that were complaining to however people saying, look, oh my God, we've been going through our own stuff. We know what we need to be considered African and and through however trickery and switchery and whatever it is and however they did their stuff, they also now are considered numbers of Africans, numbers of Chinese people. So two Chinese people can have a baby or babies in Africa, and they are African. And that same two Chinese personnel that produced that baby or baby in Africa now can come to America and be called African American. Do you see the most stupidest illogical part? That African American word is illogical now on that. It's like the Elon Musk situation, South African, right? So technically he's African American, is he not? You see this game, these games are so ridiculous. You got Boers that fled from Europe, fled down various parts of South Africa, and became Afrikaners, basically speaking Afrikaners languages, a mixture on that situation. Because they said, don't call me no African, but you best believe they have those kids now. They come to Africa. I mean, they come to America. Well, we African American. You see the little silly game, this little fleer that is being interviewed by this particular young adult woman who has no clue about true Black American history, and he's trying to ask the wrong type people about Black American history, right? Because he's a fleer. See, the problem is, people like this. Oh, let me just finish playing.
Okay, fine.
Like hip hop, not hip hop. I mean, I don't want to. Yes, I feel like
you haven't thought about it. It's fine. Don't make things up.
I'm not making it up.
Okay, then.
I'm telling you, I smell infiltrator in him. I mean, the nerd. When you look, for most people look at him, they'd be like, yuck. They would not be impressed at all about him. See, the problem is someone like this little fleer, they have been so used to not being around strong Black Americans who know history, who can sit there and call his nonsense. Say, oh, you however numbers of interviews, oh, you really won't have too many people because you're not 99% of the time. And you're very few that he might be interviewed by. They're like some old coon type Sambo situation. So they're not going to say anything too much. So think about it. He has basically been allowed to sit there and just insult Black Americans, right? I mean, how the nerve? I mean, he got to have some elephant, cojones to sit there and be a fleer coming from Benin, not even directly to the United States. His parents fled from people that look like them, that was going through some war-torn conflict, people that look like him. Where there are many types of tribalism going on. They had different wars going on. His parents fled over there, went to one of the neighboring countries. And it'll be shown a little bit about that, right? So this fleer has the nerve to say Black Americans don't have a culture when his own damn ass fleeing ass parents don't have their own damn culture, right? This fool is crazy. And I can't stand when people sit there and insult Black Americans and you be like, I know you ain't talking. You come from a war-torn place on that with major tribalism situation, with major political turmoil, right? You got people sitting there taking their damn, taking other people's damn lives. You got major extreme poverty left and right? On a people looking at that, people like Benin saying, wait a minute now, you come from a slave coast type people. The ones who were selling slaves are their own people. This fool got a nerve on that. And the problem is, again, people like him, this little vitriol carrot nut piece of whack tap of a vitriol tether, Black Jason Hodder, they have not came across the right Black Americans that are roast and toast his nonsense, right? Unfortunately, and he knows that.
Then educate me. You feel you should know you were born and raised here.
No, she was born and raised here, but by Haitian parents on that situation. And you look at her, she has no really knowledge at all Black Americans history.
Yes, but I have a Haitian.
Are you African American?
I'm Haitian American.
That's correct. Do you see why you were being specific with that? Because anybody who encounters you already knows you before. If they know you are Haitian, at least two things comes to their mind.
What is that?
If they've been to Haiti, they can look at work ethics and they say, yes, Haitians, I know them. Service industry, they know where they do well. Food, they can say yes. And even language, Creole.
Right.
And you'd be like, where did that come from? You got numbers of Black Americans that also speak some Creole in various parts of Louisiana, right? That has some Creoleness themselves. So that is nothing, some uniqueness to Haiti, right? And that's a mixture of different little languages, including French. And look right now what's going on in Haiti. Turmoil, right? So this fool is acting as if Haiti's some starness of gratefulness, of graciousness, of civilization and stuff like that. And they're getting whooped up left and right in Haiti. God.
And they can say, oh, I love Haitians. Because they saw the culture in abstract before they encountered you. So people go over the bridge of your culture, your tradition, your customs, and that helps them to know how to
address it.
Exactly.
I see.
No, you will soon know too, in addition to seeing. So I'm saying to you, any people who ask for these things, which are abstract, freedom, for example, independence, for example, and civil rights, for example, voting rights, for example, you must have a foundation on which these things are going to balance. Because the people there have to uniformly agree with consensus. This is our way of life. The do's and the don'ts involved in our culture. Even if you have to create an artificial culture.
Is that why the civil rights movement is considered dead?
It's dead and useless.
Man, you're talking about a gigantic slap to American Blacks. The many civil rights legislations came upon because of Black Americans fighting, not because they're from various parts of Africa, not because there was some kind of Caribbeanness that wouldn't have been thought of like that. So this fool, this little Benin fleeing anti-American Black fool whose parents fled from Benin, who apparently didn't have a real culture because apparently their cultures did not sit there and fight back their own other tribalism problems, and they surely didn't fight back colonial rules like that. So this fool's talking about civil rights is basically don't exist, non-existent, but his ass benefit all for Black Americans, have lost many lives fighting, American Black ancestors who have lost lives fighting for civil rights legislation, which was a very watered down versions. Many of them were. So thanks to American Blacks, that this fool gets the benefit off Black pain, off all those civil rights and stuff like that. And this fool talking about civil rights basically are useless now after his ass's benefits off that. The nerve of these vitriol piece of cocktail ass tethers, these Black adjacent hodders. And I don't know how many other Black Americans gonna keep tolerating these type of tethers. See, someone like this, not him personally, but also like-minded hymns, are very dangerous type tethers and hodders, because they will definitely walk over the bodies of Black Americans left and right. But they'll sit there and they'll get some awards. They get some awards or speak about saying, well, yes, Black stuff, wherever it is, and have a hatred deep down and stuff like that. These little tethers are dangerous like this.
They got it, but they could not balance it on any foundation. Japanese suffered in this country. 435,000 Japanese were kept in internment camps.
First of all, this fool is stupid. There was about 100-some thousand, a little bit slightly more than 100-some thousand there in internment camps. This fool is a fool, right? Those are exaggerated numbers his ass is talking about, right? On that situation. Second of all, in those internment camps, they were not getting roughed up. They still had food. They wasn't getting segregated left and right and being treated like inhumans. They were still being treated humanly. They wasn't getting beat down. They wasn't getting lynched. They didn't sit there and say, oh, those kids can't go to school. the kids were still going to a type of school on those internment camps on that. And what was the reason for those internment camps? Because there was some bad personnel that did some very bad things in that World War II from Harvard section of Japan who struck Pearl Harbor. So he just acted as if that numbers of the Japanese personnel were put in internment camps just for the heck of it. His ass is so stupid. I can't stand these little demonic black adjacent tethers when they tell a piece of half a tell history, right?
Not a single one killed each other for the 3 years they were there during the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? Not a single one became a daddy baby or baby daddy while they were in the internment camp, because there was a third object they were focused on: their culture. It has
this fool. I'm telling you, man. He nauseates me because he's telling little white lies. He acted as if, again, people were grabbing up Japanese people just for the heck of it. So I guess he thought, after this ferociousness of an attack by Howard, certain type of officials in Japan who came up with this very bad situation to sit there and attack Pearl Harbor when those many ships were sunk. Luckily that there was also some other, should we say, vessels that were not in Pearl Harbor, or it would have been a whole different outcome on that. But the destruction of many ships, the sit there and lives that were lost in Pearl Harbor, and he acted as if, oh, okay, no problem. You know, they not supposed to, those American personnel, numbers of Harvard people, they weren't supposed to be trying to see, hey man, how many Japanese people could have been involved in this? How many of them could have been some kind of agents of provocateurs? Who knows, right? But he acted as if people to start grabbing up Japanese people for the heck of it. And then I'm gonna show you where there's no Pan-Asian love, because in historical times when that was happening, there was pictures where you had certain types of Chinese people on various type beaches and however the places saying, I am not Japanese, I am Chinese, right? So this fool is crazy. And he talking about there's no basic murdering other people in internment camps. That would have been the last thing they was doing. And in World War II, 1941 to 1945, black people were not going around murdering each other like that, because 9,000% of black Americans were too busy going through black pain of segregation and hatred, not because they're from some African countries, not because they were minorities, not because they were people of color, not because they were BIPOC, black indigenous people of color, which is some nonsense generic terminology, not because they were fleers, not because they were somebody like this Benin fleer. And by the way, for people to know, when you type in Benin population in the US and see how difficult it is to sit there and look and find out how many estimated Benin personnel are in America. About 20-something years ago, it said it was close to about 700 people. Now it's a little bit more than that now, but the 5 largest type of demographics in Africa is basically like Nigerians, Ghanaians, Kenyans, Eritrea, and I think Somalians. Those in general, the 5 main ones. I'm saying in general, right? Benin population is so at the bottom, it's not even worth, it's not on the measurement scale, right? So this fool is talking about black Americans like they ain't got no culture, like they sit there and didn't do anything in this country, right? This sat around did nothing while other people around there were building the country. And this fool, being a Benin type of fleer, so his mom and dad fled from surrounding countries and stuff like that to get away from, I guess they didn't have a real culture, right? Because their culture apparently didn't sit there and protect them from other war-torn tribalism people. That's what they was having problems in Benin. So this fool and sit there and try to talk about black Americans as if they have not did anything in America. And he's allowed to sit there and broadcast this filthy cow manure mouth parasite virus out of his mouth, his nasty mouth, about black Americans. And then what I'm sitting there show a little bit later on is he also has this hatred, self-hatred, even toward numbers of other Africans. The nerve of this fleer.
Self-determination, customs, traditions, something guided them to survive. Anything they ask for in this country will be balanced on a foundation for their children.
Well, they say Haitian people have resilience.
Oh, resilience is not culture, please. Every human being has a resilience in some way or the other.
Resilience to survive, to stay alive.
Oh, so I guess Black Americans for centuries didn't have a resilience to survive on some of the most hatreds of inhuman treatment ever existed in America. So I guess Black Americans don't have resiliency for that. By the way, that's old food. That's part of the culture of Black Americans in fighting against this demonic system that's still going on toward Black Americans. And you got these fools like here, like this vitriol Franck Zanu, who sit there and pop his little wild gunky self in America, right? As he got older in life and stuff like that, and had opportunity to sit there and fly under the banner of people of color and minority and communities of color, right? I can't stand folks like this, man, because they are deadly parasites. There are some deadliness of Black adjacent hires, tethers like this, and like-minded people like him, because they for so long have been allowed to sit there and basically desecrate American Black history, to desecrate and basically feces on and salivate basically upon American Black ancestors who lost their lives and fighting in this country. Numbers of living elders right now that's still around 80s, 90s, 100s who sat there and saw firsthand formal, still Jim Crow law still going on, who sit there and saw and know of other family members that got lynched, who sit there and know themselves they had to go to the back of the restaurant, who know they still had to go to segregated water fountains, had to go to segregated hotels. Many of them had to use the green book to get around. Many of them still could sit there and go to any hotels or motels or beaches. This fool is crazy. That's part of our culture as well, of fighting against these demonic beings, right? For so long on that situation, and still being some of the most patriotic people ever. But this little Benin fleer just showed up in a half a blink of a second after America has already been built up, and think he has the right to talk about Black Americans. This fool is crazy.
Right. That is why you can.
Oh, by the way, and you said about Haitian has a culture. What the hell are you talking about? If you ask most Haitian people, hey, that's like various parts in Africa. Or where he's from, by the way. Where is your great-great-grandmother from? Your great-great-grandfather, right? And on both sides, right? They be like, I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? I have no idea on that situation. So Black Americans have their own unique culture that nobody else in America can compare to, because nobody else in America has had the same type of Black pain as American Blacks. Well, what about what we call Native Americans? How about go to Haiti on that situation? You got high numbers of what we call Native Americans, whatever that's supposed to mean, right? Numbers of them are Anglo Indians, because how many of them have paid what, $5 to be put on some of those rolls to be called Indians? You get out of here with that damn tactic on that. See, if I was sitting there debating, Franck Zanu, I would roast. I made like a freaking fool. But see, I wouldn't debate because I don't have time for that kind of stuff, getting too old for that kind of situations. So the thing about it is, some other Black Americans that know history will roast him, make him like a freaking fool on that. But this kind of tether, he's a very dangerous Black adjacent tether, because he's been allowed to sit there and open his little pock chalk mouth of his and flow out basic vitriol, demonic hatred of American Blacks, and have the nerve to tell American Blacks that they don't have a history. And he's asked sit here in this interview with this Haitian young adult woman who don't even know her own Haitian history, right?
Can see the things people ask in this country, the Irish, the Italians, the Jews. It took a while before the Jews got recognized. Exactly. But as soon as they got it, they balanced it on a foundation.
Boy, this fool is crazy. He opened his mouth, say Jawish, and you're like, who are the true original? What he talking about is modern day Jawishism is not the original Jawish people, right? When you look at pictures of what he talking about is Jawish people, they didn't look like what we call Jawish people now. And we talking about Hebrew. Hebrew was a D-E-A-D language in the 1800s, and it was revived by Harvard Zionist type personnel as a language that they wanted to see if they can rectify around a type of Zionist Darwinism that they want to try to release that part of it in situations like that. So this fool apparently doesn't know true Jawish history or a piece of Jawish history. He acted as if, wow, Jawish people just kind of appeared up out of nowhere and stuff like that and became Jawish people. There are Chinese Jawish people. There are people from India, Jawish people. People in Pakistan, Jawish people. There are Japanese people who are Jawish people, right? There are some black people who are Jawish people. So what the hell are he talking about? He acted as if Jawish people are some one monolithic type people on that, right? There are no other Sephardic Jawish people that don't like Ashkenazi Sephardic. I mean, there are numbers of Sephardic Jawish people that don't like Ashkenazi type Jawish people. And they're not the same type Jawish people. They have their own little intricateness of distinctions on that. So they're not some monolithic Jawish people in the first place themselves. This fool is crazy, but you can, anyway, I can tell he's bought out.
Culture, customs, traditions. These things conjure what should be your taboos, do's and don'ts. Everybody has to recognize it. To the point, if you violate it, I'll call you out. If we can afford, we kick you out of the community because we don't want you to destroy it. But they all went different roles. There's Malcolm X asking for something different. Martin Luther King asked
Malcolm X didn't ask for anything. What did he ask for?
Segregation. He was talking to his people.
Oh, to segregate themselves.
Yes. So you can see one group of...
This fool had the nerve to mix his mouth up talking about Malcolm X and Stokely Carmichael, MLK. MLK, Stokely Carmichael, there was also, like, Malcolm was also part of the culture, even though Malcolm X had a certain type of background. But the whole point is he knew who he was about on that. Just like some other people from different cultures who came to America because they couldn't get stuff started in that person's own country. The point is of making, when they sit there and looked at Malcolm X, they sit there and say, oh, they didn't half a thing. Well, when he has a certain type of background, they sit there and say, they look at him and say, oh, this is a Negro, right? And regardless, MLK, by the way, that means MLK was a Black American. That means he is part of a culture. That means we have to have a culture. This fool is crazy. I guess he forgot, like, people like Sojourner Truth is part of the culture. Rosa Parks is part of the culture. Garrett Morgan is part of the culture. I guess he's seen the Black American women that were portrayed in Hidden Figures that was helping to get one of the space rockets up. That's part of the culture. Right? Black man sit there and by memory sit there and help create the Washington, D.C. as we know of right now in its geography, related to the geographical and its topography. But I guess that's not Black American history, right? This fool is crazy on that situation, right? He acted as if Black Americans just popped out of nowhere. Just ain't doing nothing. Black Americans have more achievements and numbers of people within various parts of Africa, various parts of the Caribbean combined. Black Americans have more achievements, more patents. And yeah, I'm not talking about numbers of good brothers and sisters from Africa, numbers of good brothers and sisters from the Caribbean. So we're not going to play that tactic. We're talking about achievements on that situation. So how can you have a culture and you have more achievements, more patents than any other culture besides certain ones within predominate culture for generations? So how can you not have a culture? This fool is crazy, right? And he's a fleer for Benin. This fool is crazy.
Of people who suffer the same experience, yet they don't have a doctrine. And that without a doctrine, which is always balanced on on a foundation of culture, without it, anything you ask for is going to be useless. So African Americans are going to complain until the cows come home.
Man, I'm telling you, man, hopefully some people, more Black Americans, start calling this fool out. He was saying Black Americans are going to complain. So the most hated people in America is not because they come from certain parts of Africa. Africa is made up of 50 plus countries, right? So what about the Caribbean? Caribbean has dozens of different countries, of habitable countries, habitable islands, right? And there's no pan-Caribbean togetherness in that situation on that. Does he complain? Does he sit there and say, oh my goodness, what's wrong? Numbers of Caribbean people don't like each other. Is he saying, hey man, numbers of people from various parts of Africa, there's no pan-Africanism. Many of them still practice tribalism. Nope, not like that. And this fool comes from Benin, and he's a fleer. His mom and dad fled from a war-torn Benin, especially when he was young. And this fool talking about Black Americans, again, don't have a culture and they complaining. So again, before he was even an inkling in his mom and dad's eyes, right? He's a half a second of a blink of a second of a latecomer coming to America. So again, and he wants to complain toward Black Americans that he benefit off of Black pain. So Black Americans are the #1 most hated group in America by crime stats, by hate crime stats, are the #1 people that are the most hated. But this fool, this Benin tether, Black Adjisegbe Hater, is talking about Black Americans be complaining. So Black American personnel have been the most lynched, but Black Americans are complaining. Black Americans have been in the military more than any other culture, and how many have been in segregated units, but Black Americans are complaining. This fool is crazy on that situation. See, somebody like this has got to be roasted and corrected.
As to why they're not getting what they're not getting in America is simple. You don't have a foundation.
How in the hell can you have a foundation, and Black Americans are foundational Black Americans? And the country was built upon foundational Black Americans. How in the hell can you not have a culture when Black Americans were participating in every single war and conflict in America, as also a foundational Black Americans? Having achievements that Black Americans have is a Black American foundation. The music, that not because they came from Africa, not because they came from various parts of the Caribbean, I don't think so. Black Americans are the creative genius of music that nobody compares to. That is a foundation. Even in film, there is no other actors in America besides certain ones within the predominate culture who comes close to the filmography of greatness and genius of acting like Black Americans. This fool is crazy. That's part of the foundation Black Americans. Fighting against a supremacist, hateful system is part of Black Americans. The nuances in how Black Americans act, the way they come across, the smoothness is part of Black Americans. There's nobody, people ain't sitting there trying to find out how can they sit there and copy what some Benin people act like. Most people couldn't care less. This fool is crazy.
Oh man, this.
All right. Oh Lord, there's so much to go through with this man here. Now remember I said in the beginning, he was born in Benin. Okay. Now, I'm not saying everybody in Benin has any kind of anti-Black American sentiment. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. Because there could be some brothers and sisters that's watching from Benin and say, hey, man, I love your show. I don't feel that way. So no, I'm not saying that. But I'm talking about him in particular. But there were slave traders in Benin.
Exactly. And that fool, that fool ain't talking. That fool, that little Black Adjisegbe Hater tether, he ain't talking about Benin before they became Benin, and they were the kingdom of Dahomey and stuff like that. And how many of them for generations sold out each other in Africa. This fool, this little Franck Zanu, that little tether, this little infiltrator parasitic tether, Black Adjisegbe Hater, he definitely has to be called out and roasted with some reality, not to convince him. Who gives a damn about trying to convince him? But he's been allowed to sit there and disrespect Black Americans way too darn long, right? And like the field guy here, hey man, some of the good Benin people, they ain't talking about that. Talk about them. So we ain't playing that tactic.
They were. Okay. And that's a historical fact. Some people do have lineage tied to slave traders. They do. I'm not saying he do, but I'm just saying it's a reality. It happened, right? It's history. But when the young lady, and the young lady's Haitian American, let's start there. She's Haitian American. You can't put her on the spot about Black American culture. She has her Haitian culture. You can ask about Haitian culture, but you can't ask about Black American culture.
And she wouldn't even
and
know
then
that.
Also, what I noticed about him, he says that he's so smart, but yet I notice he keeps bringing up young people, and he's grilling these young people who don't even have the knowledge that he has, even halfway of it. It's nothing against them. They just don't have that knowledge yet. Okay. I don't ever see him. Why would he, if you want to have a conversation about culture, Black American culture in particular, sir, why don't you bring up somebody who's versed in Black American culture, Black American history, and also versed in world history and know about African history as well?
But not a Sambo. I'm gonna sit there and show you somebody in this a little bit that can be considered a type of Sambo, right? On that situation.
Why don't you bring somebody up like that? But see, I don't think you want to do that because you want to be made to look silly. Because it wouldn't take but 2 seconds really to have you backtracking. You understand?
That's right.
Because when you mention about, well, what is your culture? What is it? So show me something of your culture. First thing I'll be like, you sitting in front of me. What do you mean you sitting in front of me? Well, if part of my culture is revolutionary fighting and breaking free from oppression, that's part of my culture, literally. That's part of my culture. The whole world mimic my culture when they want to get something done. Feminists mimic my culture, right? LGBTQ mimic my culture. Other communities like the Nigerians, the young Nigerians, when they was trying to fight against the SARS police force, right? They was doing them wrong out there. What did they say? Oh, we took our inspiration from the Black Lives Matter movement. All these different groups that ever fought, okay, they look at us constantly. Hey, what did Black Americans do? What did Black Americans do during George Floyd? What did they do here? That's why they beg us to come out and fight for them. That's part of my culture.
And by the way, he said when George Floyd, this little Black adjacent hotter tether, Franck Zanu, right? Runner, or his parents ran from Benin from people that looked like them, and they was going to some war-torn conflict. And so they took him and fled. And so this fool got the nerve to sit there and talk bad about Black Americans. And like, what do you think George Floyd was? Because Black Americans always complaining. Oh, what do you think George Floyd was? Not because he was African. And I have to even watch that word, because that word is starting to get a little archaic, right? On that situation. Because then if we really wanted to go there, and some people don't like that, but it's still reality in history. Who named Africa? Because it wasn't numbers of African people that would name each other African. That'll be insult to how many other hundreds of tribes that don't even call themselves African now. Don't call themselves now the Himba people. One of the people that used to have the red clay on their skin, and the women have a certain type of unique look with that type of braid in their head that they use also to put the red clay in and make it a little bit more terse, should we say, on that situation. The San people, right? Some of the most original people in various parts of Africa, right? One's supposed to have the click language on that situation. You got the Masa people on that situation. Numbers of Zulu tribe type people. I mean, the list goes on. You don't sit there and put them in some generic African box, and you don't hear them jumping around talking about, well, we African, and sit there and let the other part of them go. You ain't gonna hear nobody talk like that. And then what about the numbers of Americanized versus certain parts of Africa? I know you got people that don't want to talk about that. The romanticized people that talk about Africa on that. So this Black adjacent hotter fool that ran from Benin, his parents ran from Benin, is talking about Black Americans as if Black Americans don't have a culture, right? Black Americans just complaining. even though Black Americans have been going through black pain for centuries, while this black adjacent hotter food just pops up over half a second of a blink in America's history, while Black Americans already built up the freaking country more than anybody else besides certain personnel within the Panamese culture. This fool got some nerve, Franck Zanu.
And you would not be sitting there with a pompous attitude about Black American culture. You're naturalized in this country because of Black Americans, because white people did not want no African here.
You ain't joking. And still don't.
They only wanted white people here, Europeans here.
And still do.
No Africans.
Still
no
don't.
Black Caribbean. They didn't want you here.
Still don't.
It was our culture of fighting, our culture of defeating white supremacy, and it's a constant fight. It's not over. That's how you got in the door to be sitting in the United States of America, sir, having a life you would not have had where you was at.
That's right. Because he's a fleer. So these people got the nerve. So let me kind of fast forward this for a few more minutes, and I'm going to close this particular part out.
This is 2016 when me and my... So I'm just giving a master class to Frank about, because they know who we are. That's why they approach us 1,000 of them to one. All them cops for one person, that shows fear.
I'm trying to
you let the Chinese and everybody else come in your homeland and don't do them. They'll go in your homeland. Listen, we covered it. They go in your homeland and slap you up in your country. They'll hire you. They'll hire you, slap you up. There's another time, I think the lady covered it. You got Chinese literally kicking and punching y'all. Oh, but what video have you seen in America of a Chinese slapping a Black American, punching or kicking a Black American because he or she didn't do something right on the job? Show me that video.
That's right.
You know why you won't see them videos in America? Because they know part of our culture is, I wish you would. Oh, please touch me. I want you to. That's part of our culture too, sir. I wish you.
That's right. See that little Benin fleer? And again, I'm not talking about numbers of some good Benin personnel. We're talking about people like this fleer, Franck Zanu, who have the opportunities that he's been used as a pawn, as an informant, right? As a buffering informant against Black Americans. And even worse, well, it's not worse than nothing on that, but additionally, he's been used as also a pawn even against other African personnel, and insulting his own numbers of African counterparts who he hates, various ones himself. So I'm gonna sit there and show you how he sits there and talks about numbers of other African places, and he's a fleer himself.
The white guy comes out. I'm sitting in court, in child support court, lets you individualize it. No. It is, they have an anti-Black racism culture. Find out about human, sit in child support court, So it's not a racialized thing. But if you actually take time to do research, you'll find that out. Don't get into that culture talk, because I ain't really get deep into the culture with you, because if your culture is so much better than mine, why are you not in Benin? Why aren't you over there, since the culture's better?
That's right.
Why are you here?
Right.
If your culture's better, because cultures according to you, make you superior. So can you show me your superior culture in your homeland?
Because he can't.
And like I said, I'm directing it at him, not the brothers and sisters in Benin.
That's right.
Not them, because they didn't say anything.
Specifically, Franck Zanu and people like him.
I'm cool with them in Benin. I ain't got no issue with them. I'm talking about him.
That's right.
Okay.
So let me stop that part. So the thing about it is, he has the nerve, Franck Zanu, to sit there and talk crazy about Black Americans, right? And again, something about Franck Zanu, his aura. Anyway, let me stop, because things getting freezing up. Hold on, let me see something. Hold on. Oh, hold on. Oh, I want to show something. See, people like Franck Zanu and like-minded people like him, they're very deadly. Like this situation right here, the big tortoise, whatever he is, he's a representative of a certain numbers of black adjacent harder tethers on that, right? And so they'll sit there and be like, hey man, we're together because those people that are hunting us, we got to watch out for them. So we gotta stand together and stuff like that. And this crowd is like, the crowd represents a certain number within certain parts of the American black community, certain ones. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, man. I mean, Pan-Africanism, right? Even though various parts of Africa don't even like being called African, right? And stuff like that. But yeah, man, I mean, yeah, we need to get together because we're minorities and people of color, right? Communities of color and stuff like that. And that big old giant tortoise, again, represents some little sneakiness of some black adjacent harder tethers who couldn't even fix anything in their own original country that they fled from. And again, I'm not talking about some of the good brothers and sisters because those are small numbers, because the system makes sure they vex the ones that are allowed to come to America. And they're not going to have a collective amount of personnel come from various parts of Africa that are trying to get together with black Americans and have a type of coalition of trueness, togetherness, to understand one another, even though it ain't really none to understand, because if you fleeing from various parts of Africa, then you show the respect and being in black American and stuff like that. And black Americans will show that respect back on that situation overall. But this is the representative again, the big old tortoise of black adjacent harder tethers that talk all that little nonsense tether talk. And they talk to certain types of black Americans, the ones applied to, who do not know that the danger that knows the black Americans in. So the crowd was like, yeah, we need to get together. And this was the black, look what's going to happen with the black adjacent tether harder symbolism. Hey, what's going on, man? You ready to talk? Oh, hey, let's talk a little bit more. Yeah, come closer, man. Let's get together. Okay, let's go talk around the corner over there on the tables over there. Oh. One more time. Let's talk. All right, let's go. Yes. And this is what happens so many times to numbers of black Americans. They're allowing these black adjacent tether hodders to keep playing these games on this situation. This is why I say again, hold on, let me see if this ain't gonna play this time. It's not gonna play this time. So I'm about to re-add this. Give me a second. Let me re-add something. Because again, when I sit there and look at Franck Zanu and people like him, similar minded, now him person don't give a 2 cents of a cocktail about him. Because I know people like these kind of, I smell them. This is what he reminds me of. An informant. What? He's what again? Yes. An informant. Yes. He's a bought and paid for informant. And I smell it on him, right? The self-hatred soothes out in a bad way of his mouth toward American blacks. I mean, that's why I say American blacks are some of the most openest people, because let me tell you something. Black Americans could not go to various parts of Africa and just start insulting the hell out of them. Oh my goodness, why you get paid peasant wages? Oh my goodness. Black Americans can have pay the most lowest federal minimum wage and still make a lot more money than certain various parts in Africa. The nerve, right? But Black Americans ain't gonna do that. Right? Black Americans have more millionaires than any other culture in America, besides certain ones of the Palm-Based culture. But they don't want to talk about that. Black Americans are their own unique magnificence. But the same problem, unfortunate situations that the system makes sure to show the negative version of Black Americans. Now, again, there is some blameness upon certain types of Black Americans. You like CNN. Where's the Black American CNN? MSNBC. Where is the Black MSNBC? Even you look at certain type of professional football and basketball, who also, that's part of the culture of Black Americans, right? Without the Black Americans in a certain type of main professional football, there is no that professional football league. There is no such thing as that thriving. And that professional high-level basketball league, without Black Americans, there is no gigantic high level of viewership. It's no such thing. That is part of the culture, right? Now, try to put various numbers of half of those teams with numbers of various sections of Africanism on there and see how that goes. Huh? It ain't going to happen. And the system knows that. But it's also, again, an insult in it. I don't want to go there because then it's like, what is going on where you won't have a Black American ownership in that certain high level professional football league. And again, I'm not talking about Sambo type people as well, or Uncle Tom's, but there is no Black ownership. There's no Black ownership, majority ownership in that professional high level basketball league. It's an insult in this, right? So there is some responsibility by certain types of personnel within but some responsibility by certain type of Black Americans once applies to say, wait a minute, Black Americans are not no broke people. There are Black American people that are thriving, that live in own very nice communities, that are not using N-word left and right, that have many type of businesses, that have high levels of education. But to let various parts of Anglo main media tell it that Black Americans ain't doing nothing. And this is why you got various other cultures from some other different places in various parts of Africa, some other places in Asia, some other places, and the list goes on, right? That in these various clubs, they only play bad versions of hip hop. You're like, wait a minute, you do realize hip hop is not talking about gangster rap, right? You realize there was various types of constructive hip hop that wasn't using N-word all over the place, but they're not going to show that. Part of also the culture is Black Americans creating the musical genres in America that nobody else comes close to. So that Black adjacent how to tell the fool, Franck Zanu and people like him that fled various parts of Africa. And again, I'm not talking about some of the good brothers and sisters. Those are very small. But people like Franck Zanu and other Black adjacent tether demonic hodders like Franck Zanu, some other people that are allowed to come over and be informants, right? Very dangerous informants. I guess they seem to forget that Black Americans created the various musical genres. It wasn't African personnel. Again, I'm not talking about some of the good brothers and sisters. We aren't talking about none of them. So we ain't gonna play that game. But Black Americans created soul music. I guess Franck Zanu don't seem to understand that's part of the culture. I guess he didn't understand that Black Americans also are foundationally jazz creation type people. I guess he don't understand. Not because they somebody from Africa that created jazz or various parts of the Caribbean. I don't think so. I guess Frank, very parasitic, very dangerous, mouthful informant. Zanu, I guess he don't understand that rock and roll has its foundations in Black American creation. Even country music, various parts of the tenets of country music also comes from Black Americans. R&B comes from Black Americans, right? Who else again? Nobody else has created more genres in America than Black Americans. But I guess Franck Zanu, the little tether, Black Jason Hodder, who his parents ran from Benin. I guess he don't know that Black Americans are the foundation of music creation. But I guess Black Americans have a culture. But this fool is crazy. This is why I have to relay over that he's very dangerous. People like these Black adjacent hodders, like Franck Zanu and like-minded people, they are very dangerous. Because when it comes down to it, he say, hey, you're over here, so what you gonna do, of showing Black Americans that you appreciate that Black Americans have built this country, and you get to sit there and have some toastness, right, of enjoyment off of black pain. So what are you going to do to show that respect? What about you sit there and go talk to the political people and stuff like that, demand black American reparations? That fool Franck Zanu and people like that, Black Jason Hodder, they'll do just like this. It's funny, it's not. Right? You say, hey, Frank, you parasitic, virilytic type of informant, dog shit person. What are you gonna damn do to help black Americans out? You benefit off that. Show some respect. What are you gonna do for that? Well, we can do some stuff like that. And then it comes down to it, be like, hey, Frank, hey man, we're gonna go talk to this political personnel and we're gonna demand these reparations. This is what Frank will do. You be like, Frank. Because he has a hatred for black Americans. Because he's a fleer. And then he has a hatred for none of his own African brothers and sisters. This is what makes him very dangerous as well on that, right? But watch this. Let's see if you think he would believe, you think he would get killed this kind of culture. Nope. He will look down upon that. You be like, you talking about culture? How about this culture, Frank? Right? See, Frank will be very quiet. Franck Zanu, the little Black Adjisegbe Hodder tether, right? There's a fleer because he don't come from a culture. He comes from fleers, right? Because he knows deep down that black Americans are the most unique culture in America, that nobody compares to the black American experience. Nobody. The great documentary Eyes on the Prize is a mandatory for people to watch. Ones who have not saw this, how people from different cultures and backgrounds who probably listen to this as well, or these amazing black Americans that may listen to this. Eyes on the Prize, if you ain't saw that online, Eyes on the Prize is a must on that for various parts of black American cultural history. See, Franck Zanu either saw it and he playing stupid, or he hasn't saw it, which then still makes him illogical and very deadly, talking about black Americans have a culture. And the only thing you do is also look at Eyes on the Prize on that. Look at great movies like Rosewood on that situation. We look at great movies like Mississippi Burning. But black Americans are always complaining, right? That he and his own fleer type people could not survive on that situation. This fool is crazy on that. But he surely, again, won't sit there and talk about this one. He's supposed to be what? African brothers and sisters. He was like, I don't know them. Is that his part of his culture? He was like, I don't know them. I don't got anything to do with them. This is why I say again, he is a deadly mouth parasitic parasite of a Black Adjisegbe tether. He's very deadly on that. This is why people like him, again, I smell informant. What? Say it again. I smell informant on people like him. Because again, the hatred that spews out his aura of anti-American blackism is very strong. And I don't have too many other things I'm going to play in a little bit. But he's a very deadly parasitic virus of a type of Black Jason Hodder and tether. They are very dangerous to black Americans. Because again, when it came down to it, and he'll lie in front of your face. And when it comes down to sit there and say, hey, man, let's get together and do some stuff because you're in America. So you do owe black Americans something on that. Yeah, you sure right. Hey, let's go talk to these political people. Let's go sit and talk to these organizations and stuff like that. But what are they going to do for black people? right? Because without black people, many people didn't even exist, won't even exist in this country. He'd be like, yeah, let's get together and go here. And all of a sudden, you sitting there talking to people, black Americans talking to people, and you sitting there saying, you look around, and you say, where's Frank at? Where's Frank? Yes. On that. So let me sit there and share. Let me kind of speed this up a little bit now. No, let me see what I want to play here. Let me share this right quick.
It's a big pool of black people, especially wherever there is a big pool of black people, especially when they're low income, that they always.
Oh, this is hatred, boy.
Wherever there is a big pool of black people, especially when they're low income, that they always vote Democrat. Majority of many black pillars of academics and professions in this country are vilified by black people, not by anything they have done, but by simply being Republican. Larry Elder, Ben Carson, Condoleezza Rice.
He got some nerve. See that again, that's what tells me he is a infiltrator. He's their name, Larry Elder. For people who know, he is a super coon. A super coon. And he said, Condoleezza Rice. Oh my goodness. He said, Condoleezza Rice. Oh my goodness. And you ask people, damn, you never really seen her with any kind of relationship. Don't even mention her relationship. Okay. And he said, Ben Carson. Okay, let's go with that. A great black American, by the way, achievement. That's part of the culture. But at the same time, somewhere he lost his way and became a coon. So he's naming coon overall type people. This fool is crazy.
Candace Owens.
And by the way, he said Candace Owens is a known coon. Right? And she's part Caribbean, whatever the place she's from, that part. On that cosplay as Black American when it was convenient for her. When she was, there was a story go when she was young, she talked about how she was experiencing racism. I can't remember if it was in high school, a little bit after that. She said she was called all kind of names and the N-word and all that stuff like that. I'm just giving an example. And then I guess she brought forth some kind of suit upon Harvard school or wherever it was. And I guess it got paid off that or some kind of settlement, whatever it was. But she looked at her as a Negro. Now all of a sudden, all these years, coolness. How many times she was anti-Black American herself, right? Coonish. And this fool gonna name some of the coolest ass people, and he gonna sit there and act like this because you say Republican, as if in history, numbers of Republicans did not sit there and vote for segregation. This fool is crazy. This fool acts like that. You had people. This because they said the Republican did not sit there and did not want Black American people in the military. This fool is crazy. And how's that a true democracy? Just having Democrats and Republicans, right? As if both of them, the ones applies to, participated and still allowing Jim Crow laws to go continue toward American Blacks. This fool is crazy.
These are all Republicans, and they are vilified by Blacks. Are we saying that all these people I have mentioned, Thomas Sowell, that they are...
Hey, Thomas Sowell. See, these people are saying the most coonish people. Yes, Thomas Sowell, people don't know, he's a major coon. So this tells me, this is why I look at him, I can't stand his look. It's kind of hard. It really is difficult for me to look at this coonish fool. Because like Thomas Sowell, he's a coonish fool. And this guy here, this fool, he is a parasite, dastardly type of Black tether, hotter fool. And he smells of tether. He smells of dangerous Black adjacent tethering. That he will sit there and step over the bodies of Black people. That shows me that, again, he smells of informant. He smells of, again, being bought out. He smells of someone that is used as a pseudo buffering pond, Black skinned type of tether food. He smells of that on that situation. And he's been allowed to continue. Let me stop that. I don't want to see him. I don't hear him no more on that part. it's hard. It's really getting hard to sit there and listen to him on this situation. That's why I'm going to speed it. That's why I'm going to speed this up a little bit more. Okay, it's getting really tired of listening to him on this because again, the hatred that spews out his mouth. So let me go ahead and share my screen on that. I think I got a couple of more before I show something really interesting part. Hold on. No, hold on. What's this right here?
Is convincing the conclusion.
Sorry.
This comment here.
Oh yeah.
Is convincing the conclusion. Oh no, there are too many holes in it. Remember, blacks in America, they were brought here as slaves.
This fool, excuse me, fool. Many other also Black Americans came as free people. And even when the majority of Black folks came as enslavement and became their own uniqueness, they're also the most fightingest people ever in America that still survived. Now, if they were still what you would call African person overall, whatever that's supposed to mean, because that'd be so many tribes, then many would have fell off and would have not survived. So Black Americans became Black Americans, right? See, they kind of nerve, like they try to shame people, say Black American slave, as if that's supposed to mean that Black Americans that were enslaved, as if Black Americans they were just sitting around, while at the same time being Black American enslaved, as if they asked to be put in enslavement, right? We're still building up America, while still have to deal with some of the most hateful laws ever exist in America toward Black Americans, right? As if being enslaved means that you didn't have any value, while at the same time building this country up, while having its own Black towns and prospering, doing their own little thing, right? This fool has got the nerve and sitting there fighting to sit there and get those 13, 14, 15 minutes, 13, 14, and 15 minutes of the Constitution to sit there and get that done. Not because they're from certain parts of Africa, not because they're from some kind of tether class, because there was Black Americans doing that. And you got these tethers and stuff like that that benefit off that. This fool is crazy.
You see, in any culture across the world, whenever somebody falls under that class, it will be segregated. If you have even a maid, you don't sit in a couch and pop your feet on the coffee table and watch television and pour yourself some cold pop from the fridge. No. Sometimes you don't even use certain things they use in that home. As a maid, not a slave, segregation, Jim Crow was simply based on the fact that these people were slaves to us.
This fool is crazy. He just mouthed off as if Jim Crow was just some piece of time that really wasn't nothing. So he's heard of the words. The problem is that he has been allowed to sit there and minimize that. So this fool, when you know, it's like, wait a minute, you come from generations of enslavement. And then if the 13th Amendment was supposed to be about abolishing slavery, but it did not sit there and stop basically the inhumane treatment of Black folks, because Black folks still wasn't treated as citizens and still couldn't vote. Right? That's when you start going to the 14th Amendment. That's supposed to finally be about granting basically citizenship to Black Americans. This is what so many people, including these Black adjacent tethers, they had these kids and they benefit off Black pain, because then now that kid is automatic citizenship. These Black tethers, adjacent tethers, are parasitic and dangerous because they benefit off the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. But still, Black folks still couldn't vote like that. That was where the 15th Amendment of the Constitution came up. So this fool acted as if Black folks just complain for the hell of it, right? This fool is dangerous. And this fool act like that. You got 50-some damn countries in Africa. Overall amount was various colonized, including Benin, that damn sure wasn't fighting no really body back like that. Because again, their language, official language, still French. This fool got the nerve on that, right? And again, Benin, before it became Benin, and it was the Kingdom of Dahomey, was selling out other type of Africans over there as slaves. And then how many participated in within the internal African trade? How many of those people from Benin and other people were participating in those trading off of other black Africans within. This fool is crazy. I'm telling you, this is why black Americans, he's lucky that black Americans are not mad as hell at certain various parts of Africa. Say, oh, hell no, y'all owe some reparations. Y'all owe reparations, man, for the shit y'all have done to what became black Americans. Y'all owe reparations. Not sitting there and getting some kind of visa, indefinite visa, and going through all that process and still paying whatever large fees, or saying citizenship, which is extremely and insulting of the extreme minute amount of African countries that are somewhat trying to offer citizenship. And you have to even watch that and see how schemed that is. Because first of all, black America shouldn't be paying a freaking fee of any significance to sit there and become a citizen of certain parts of Africa, the one who black Americans who wants to apply for that. It should be about, hey, you know what? Your ass and various other countries were responsible for also what became the black Americans, who became their own evolutionary, unique culture. Especially when you got black Americans that take the African ancestry DNA test and say, oh, you got share ancestry back to this culture and that culture, and knowing that 9,000% that was because of being enslaved, that other type of African people that was selling off other Africans. There should not be any kind of freaking high level fees. I mean, I guess, a correspondence fee or administration fee, I'm not a problem with that. $50, $75 and stuff like that, not a problem. But it should not be any significant fees whatsoever for black Americans to get a citizenship from these places that had a significant of enslavement of other Africans, or putting other Africans in bondage, and also what became black Americans on that.
And we can't do things equally with them, regardless if you were European, Indian, Japanese, whatever you were. If you were brought here as a slave, if you were brought to Egypt as a slave, if you were taken to Rome as a slave, or you were taken to China as a slave, they will treat you the same way, simply based on the class being a slave.
This fool is stupid. This fool is trying to equate slavery with Greek slavery or Roman slavery as if that was the damn same. This fool is crazy. He's a danger. I'm telling you, he's a very dangerous tether on that. He has the nerve to sit there and try to generically put slave in some generic mix. And then he definitely is not saying, yes, Benin, they had a large contribution of putting their own type of African people in enslaved. He makes sure to talk about that. These are the kind of, see, this is why though he's a coward. He's a freaking coward. And the thing about, he's a dangerous coward, because I'm telling you, it's hard to really listen to him, man, because he's making me nauseated, because it's like he's a deadly parasitic type tether on that. He won't talk about the tribalism still going on in Benin on that. Again, I'm talking about some of the good brothers and sisters, but he sure is not going to talk about the bondageness of slavery from Benin being known as the slave coast, along with some of the other countries. Major slave endorsement ports in Benin, right? The nerve of this fool, right? So let me go ahead. I'm trying to speed this a little bit more, because I was definitely going beyond the time I was thinking on that. Let me see if I want to show something else. You know what? This one last one I'm going to show with this person. This is going to show the hatred that he has. I'm about to speed this up more now, where it shows he has this hatred even for other African personnel, right? Listen to his condescendingness of various types of this African or hate, wherever they from, but they're not black Americans. See how he has this condescending hatredness. Oh, hold on.
I'm trying to say that, from what I'm understanding, in third world countries, anything that is not under maintenance is because, we don't care.
No, you care. It's not in the concept. Travel the 54 countries in Africa and ask each person in every country, what is wrong with your country? Leadership. All of you say the same word. So let me ask you, since 1960, The country has been picking the wrong leader every 4 years. Not a single railway built by the British is in Nigeria today, but the one they built in their country that same year, it's still running. Not a single railway built in Ghana in 1960 is still there today. What do you know in that country that has been properly maintained by the people every day and it works perfectly?
You see, he's asking these young adults, right, that he can sit there and play these little games with. And then you see how he's talking, oh, certain buildings are not still there in Africa. You like, the pyramids are still around. The Great Zimbabwe complex is still around. And various other places where some of these buildings are still around, right? I'm telling you, he's a very deadly, and various other people from various parts of Africa better watch him on that. This guy is very deadly. This is the kind of person, not him personally, but his actions, he will sit there and go help destroy some other places in various parts of Africa. I'm telling you, he's a very deadly one. So he's sitting there, he basically insulting various other parts of Africa himself, being somebody from Benin, himself being a fleer. He'd be like, I don't think most people even think about Benin like that. They probably people, 9,000% people couldn't even tell you the name of the capital in Benin. On that, it is a itty bitty piece of country on that situation that most people wouldn't even think about, let alone be able to show it on a freaking map on that. But he's sitting there trying to insult basically various parts of Africanness. And it's like, but he's not showing accountability for various parts of Benin being a slave coast, a previous slave coast, and a major slave trading post, right? This fool is crazy.
It's hard for people to maintain things when they're not gaining a lot.
No, it's hard for people to maintain things when they don't have the concept of maintenance in their culture. What is the one word in Igbo for maintenance?
Maintenance is, there's no direct English word for that. It doesn't translate directly to maintenance.
That's correct. How about you?
It doesn't translate.
That's correct.
But it translates to like take care of.
No, that is not maintenance. What is the one word for repair in Igbo?
Imezie.
Exactly. What is the one word for repair in You see, I'm driving you to somewhere. What is the one word for democracy in Igbo language? You don't. How about you? You don't. You're trying to practice something that is not in the concept of the language.
A deadly fool. I don't want to play no more of him because I'm telling you, I'm really getting just sick of listening to him. Because again, I smell informant on him. I'm telling you, I smell again, one last time in this video, the informant on that situation. So last video I showed, I mean, you talking about, well, what is the word in Igbo for maintenance? And you know these buildings in this place is not, there's no correct building, and these other buildings they're not really surviving in certain parts of Africa and stuff like that. As if Benin is some gigantic spectacle of a lighthouse of building accomplishment when 9,000% of the people wouldn't give a damn about what's going on in Benin, right? Couldn't name any damn thing basically going on constructively in Benin like that. And he comes from Benin, but his ass ain't flying his ass back to Benin at the level he should be and getting Harvard corruptibility by Harvard personnel, the ones it applies to. He's not sitting there saying, hey, we got to sit there and build all this stuff up and make it a world-class place to come to. He's not doing all that. He's not sitting there saying we need to get away from tribalism and we're going to just unite ourselves and call ourselves Beninese type people. Because they tell him you don't take your somewhere else with that crowd. Because he really doesn't talk about what particular tribe he comes from. So you have to watch these dangerous teller type people like this on this. So I think a few more things. I think I'm gonna close out this show on this part. And by the way, he said black folks ain't got no culture. So I got a couple of things I'm about to close it up. He said black folks ain't got no culture, right? Right? As if Benin is some masterfulness of culture, right? I don't think so. Especially when they had generations of enslaving or putting each other in slavery for generations in the kingdom of Dahomey, which was pre-Benin. And then after that, how many people were sitting there still doing things to their own people? And after 1960 is when they got their independence, wink, wink, from France. How many of them still practice tribalism to each other? Again, I'm not talking about some of the good brothers and sisters of Benin who know who they are. The good ones, they know, yeah, there's some tribalism situation going on. There's some corruption going on and different things like that. So again, I'm not talking about some of the good brothers and sisters from Benin. But what I'm getting at is that he makes sure to not talk about those tribalism problems, extreme poverty going on like that, right? Lack of education opportunity. He makes sure not to talk about those kind of things with his fleeing self from Benin on that. But again, he talks about Black American Oganos culture. Man, this fool is crazy.
Now, fellas, during the few days that you'll be with us here at this camp, you'll be converted from a civilian into a full-fledged soldier. Forward.
During World War II, segregation in the U.S. military led to the creation of all-Black units. But while some rose to fame for their combat exploits, others remained virtually unknown.
Oh, let me take that music down just in case.
When Allied forces landed at Normandy on June 6, 1944, one of the group's tasks was setting the metal cabled barrage balloons was the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion. Assigned to the smaller balloons that rose above the beachhead, the 320th was the first balloon unit to land on D-Day.
But remember, Black Americans don't got no culture. Please go ahead and show these segregated African units like that in America. Please go ahead and show in the Civil War these many segregation African units and Caribbean units. Please go ahead and show that. Please go ahead and show in World War I these various African and Caribbean units. Please show in World War II these various African and Caribbean units. By the way, matter of fact, go ahead and show these Benin type of units. Please go ahead and show these. When you're talking about in 2020, when you look down, you look at the demographics of Benin, good luck trying to find a good estimation even now in 2025, because they are so minute, it's almost like they ain't worth even a mention. But here it is, this Beninese type of fleer who has had opportunities because he is able to slide under the banner of a people of color and minority communities of color, right? Didn't earn shit to do any damn thing, but sit there and was able to get under the banner of Black Americans. And the fools who got there's some people that got some foolishness that say, well, them was African people so educated. Man, don't even play that game. They got the let me watch my language now, because you start looking at some of the top colleges and you sit there and don't see any various African colleges on some top 50 list like that. This fool is, man, I'm telling you, because there are some people that be like, well, Africans and so educated. And again, I'm not talking about some of the good brothers and sisters. And again, I really don't like utilizing genericality of just saying African or Africa. You're like, which part are you talking about? There are many people in various parts of Northern Africa that can't stand other people in Black South Africans. There are numbers of African people in West Africa who can't stand East Africans. There's numbers of East Africans who can't stand West Africans. Numbers of Central Africans, some of them can't stand how numbers of them can't stand various other places. Various other places can't stand numbers of Central Africans, right? I mean, so when you sit there and say generic Africans, there is no context. You do realize that there are numbers of Indians that have popped out kids too, and well, I mean, they not considered Africans. Again, numbers of Boers that fled from high parts of Europe, and they speak Afrikaners, that language, you're like, no, because we ain't talking about this, don't call us no Africans, but we'll play our kids, but they're considered Africans, right? How many of the Chinese people that are infiltrating various parts of Africa, and those kids being born are called Africans? Huh? That list goes on. See how that goes. And this is why, just saying African, that's going to be, man, anyway, that name is going to keep going, because there's really nothing that can really change the dynamic, because they will throw too many things off. So I guess on that, but that does not change the fact that none of the Black Americans that know better, right, say, no, don't be trying to put us on some generic African banner. No. That's like sitting there telling what we call Native Americans, just say, call themselves Native Americans. They'd be like, no. We'll utilize that in general, but we are made up of many types of Native American tribes. So they're not going to let you put them in some generic Native American box. But at the same time, Black Americans are supposed to just call themselves Africans. You'd be like, the hell you say? There's nothing wrong with doing genetic testing relating to, some people want to see what particular tribe or tribes they may have a connection to specifically, not just saying generically African. Matter of fact, again, there's many of those Africans who don't even know their lineage. But again, people don't want to talk about that overall. But back to this, I'm gonna play a few more seconds, or maybe another minute or two of this great Black American history that people like Frank, parasitic, dangerous, very extremely dangerous, very parasitic, Black adjacent Harvard Tether, who ran from, or his parents ran for Benin, from people that look like him, that has the nerve to talk about Black Americans don't have no culture. What the hell do you sit there and see in this freaking picture? Black American culture and history, not Benin, please. Ain't nobody, most people ain't thinking about no Benin like that at all as a beacon of culture.
And the first all-Black unit to set foot in France. D-Day. And the first all-Black unit to set foot in France. 6 months later, during the Battle of the Bulge, the all-Black 761st Tank Battalion helped turn the German offensive into one of the greatest American victories in history. During the Battle of the Bulge, the all-Black 761st Tank Battalion helped turn the German offensive into one of the greatest American victories in history.
But remember, Frank, the parasitic, dangerous Black adjacent Tether, Hodder, says Black Americans don't have a history, don't have a culture. So Black Americans for the last several centuries just been kind of hanging out, not doing nothing, right? While helping to build America more than anybody else besides certain ones within the predominate culture. See, Frank is a very dangerous type Tether, Black Jason Hodder. So he comes from a place that he knows that he does not want to ever go back to like that, right? Because there are some ones that know of him, probably Benin, that knows he is a Sambo, he's a sellout, he is not to be trusted. They'll sit there, they utilize some of his resources that he got off the backbones of Black Americans, stuff like that, and high number of supremacist people that are using him as a pawn. They use him as a buffer under the banner of generically communities of color and people of color, minority. They utilizing him and stuff like that because he knows that there's not enough Black Americans that hold their freak up. We're getting tired of these Black adjacent Tethers and Hodders getting various types of resources, free resources, getting grants and other type of resources, open up businesses off the Black pain and stuff like that. Be able to go these numbers of HBCUs and getting scholarships. You're like, how in the freak does that work? You just popped up in America at the blink of an eye, but sitting there going to HBCUs and getting however number of scholarships without earning a damn thing. What an insult. But remember, Frank, parasitic, dangerous, Black Jason Hodder, Zanu says Black Americans ain't got no culture. But HBCUs were created for Black Americans, not because they're from Africa, not because they're from certain parts of the Caribbean, because they were for Black Americans. So this tether, man, hopefully some other more Black Americans gonna call roast that little Franck Zanu out, because he damn sure needs to be roasted out left and right.
Known as the Black Panthers, they fought for 2 continuous days against German panzer and infantry units at Tillet, Belgium. And later helped defeat the Nazi forces encircling American troops at Bastogne.
It said he helped defeat the Nazi troops. But I guess whereas all that, see, that type of Black American history is not going to be taught overall. See, as long as the use of the N words and the bad versions of hip hop and seeing some young and some maybe even slightly older Black Americans doing some sagging as if that represents Black Americans overall, looking at Black American women as some kind of ghetto-ness, which I despise that word. You be like, where did the word ghetto come from? Came from various parts of Warsaw, Poland, and that was against what numbers of Anglo-adjacent type people, right? The word ghetto comes from, but other type of Anglo-adjacent people who had a hatred toward other Anglo-adjacent people, right? On that, so they call them ghetto. So the nerve of people, Black Americans, a lot of people to put them in some certain type of people in some kind of ghetto box, please, right? And you can have someone, Black American, make some minimum wage and still make more money in many parts of various parts of Africa, various parts of the Caribbean. Again, I'm not talking about numbers of good brothers and sisters who know who they are. We're talking about the ones who got the nerveness to talk that bad about Black Americans, right? But look at this powerful history of Black Americans in the military. But Frank parasitic virusness mentalities are new, acts like Black Americans don't have a culture. This fool is crazy. So let me finish playing this for about 30 more seconds.
On the opposite side of the world, Black units also fought in the Pacific Theater of Operations. The first African Americans to enlist in the Marine Corps were the Montford Point Marines, so named after their segregated training facility near Camp Lejeune.
The Montford Point Marines, and again, this African American stuff needs to be thrown into the astronomy of trash can of space. That stuff needs to be turned about Black Americans. That is a very specifically Black Americans, American Blacks. That is very specific on that. African Americans, again, I've already talked about that, like some other people. 2 Chinese people, 2 Pakistani people, 2 Afghanistan people. You got 2 Indian people. You get the gist. They come to Africa, have some babies, produce, depending where they're at. That babies become what? African. They decide to come to America. They become what? African American. So that whole African American stuff is archaic. It needs to be specifically for some people, Black Foundation, Black America. That's fine. Specifically Black American. That is a distinction. See, again, various parts of Africa, you ain't gonna sit there and tell some Massa people, hey man, don't call yourself Massa people, or some San people, or the Himba people, or various types of Zulu tribe. You can't call yourself that. You must just say African. They'd be like, man, you don't go to whatever language they speak. You don't go to whatever place. You don't tell us what to speak. Before the word Africa came in existence, we were already here, right? Because they were going by their own tribe languages and tribe names. But Black Americans are told you ain't supposed to have no cultural history. You're supposed to call yourself African, while many other people be like from Africa don't even call themselves African. Let me say, yeah, we may have a certain group, gigantic continental nationality, but we are on tribe first. We're on country nationality first. So if that's the case, Americans and Black Americans in America then would be considered what? Black Americans. This stuff is so.
Although often assigned to supply jobs overseas, elements of the Montford Point Marines engaged Japanese forces on Saipan, Guam, and Palau. In the Atlantic, 2 U.S. Navy ships, destroyer escort USS Mason DE-529 and subchaser USS PC 1264, were crewed by African American sailors. Subchaser USS Peace, destroyer escort USS. In the Atlantic, 2 U.S. Navy ships, destroyer escort USS Mason DE 529 and subchaser USS PC 1264, were crewed by African American sailors.
But remember, Black Americans ain't got no history, right? According to Franck Zanu, parasitic, very dangerous mouth, cow mouth, Franck Zanu, Black adjacent hotter tether. But Black Americans ain't got no history and culture, right? But he comes from a fleeingness in Benin, right? Which ain't nobody jumping up and down about Benin. Nobody saying what kind of music they playing in, what kind of music are they sitting there playing in Benin that we got a copy off of? Because most people don't care. Most people can care less about Benin like that. Again, I'm not talking about some of the good brothers and sisters of Benin. Who know they are? So it's an insult when the allowability of somebody like a Franck Zanu with his parasitic type of parasite type of mentality of hatefulness toward American blacks, and his also and his own type of viralness of hatred toward various parts of Africanism type people, makes him an extremely dangerous type person, very deadly in his mouth hatredness and stuff like that. Because again, he said they had the nerve talking about Black Americans ain't got no culture. And what that's going to show you? Black American culture. So he's a very dangerous, hateful little cow spawn, right? Because again, I'm gonna play, I think one last video, I think on the show. Make sure here. I think I got one last video. I think I do. Maybe two. Not quite sure on that. But he's a very hateful type of virulent type of cow bee-tongue type of parasite, Franck Zanu. He's very deadly in his mouth toward American blacks. And again, toward numbers, even his some other African counterparts on that. So let me, what I want to show, well, before I, hold on, give me a second here. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I think I'm gonna show this one last thing. I'm probably gonna finish up one last thing and one quick other thing. And this is I'm gonna finish up the show a little bit on that. So thank you for tuning in, Daryl. I really didn't think it's gonna go this long, but again, I do this for timepiece purposes as well. Here we go. From the greatness of this Black American, Dr. Claude Anderson. And Dr. Claude Anderson has been around for a while. Some people know him on the great book and the great documentary that's on, maybe still on YouTube at this time, because again, I mean, today is September the 3rd, 2025, and however long YouTube will be around. But the point is, as of right now, YouTube being up, I don't know if it's still on there, but I think Paranomics is on there. Dirty Little Secrets and stuff like that, about Black numbers of Black Americans, achievement, stuff like that, and some other powerful type of history and stuff like that that's not taught so much. I think that's still online on that. But Dr. Claude Anderson, a Black American, right? That does not mean every single part of his family tree is Black American. That is the misnomer. It has nothing to do with that. It is about the collectiveness of the Black Americans. Does a lineage go back collectively on that? Right? It ain't that complex. That's what makes also a Black American lineage, not just one section or a piece of section that went into a different direction. No, that means a collective amount. The lineage is Black American, right? And Black Americans do not, and some other people don't let people try to dictate what they think Black American lineage is. No one else will allow Black Americans to go in their country, tell them what their lineage is. And how, and watch this for a second. Like numbers of Chinese people going to Africa left and right. And they are, however, ones that's doing this, however, one that's been told to go to certain parts of Africa and baby up. Remember, Black American males are supposed to be, oh my goodness, they're runners. They don't want to be responsible. See, that is bad propaganda. How many numbers of Anglo males run from responsibilities? Well, of course, they won't talk about it. How many numbers of certain parts of Africa? How many personnel with certain parts of the Caribbean? One this applies to that you have men running away from responsibility. How many of those are women from various parts don't want men to be around, but they have these babies. Some places in the Caribbean, like Jamaica and maybe some other places, and some parts of Africa, have high false child paternity and stuff like that. That she said that the man was the baby. They found out, no, that baby was not the baby. That's not the father, right? Oh, but they don't want to talk about stuff like that a lot. It's always about that black man doing something bad. And that gets very tiring, I'm sure, for a lot of Black Americans that like, oh, this is getting ridiculous now, right? Because there's not enough Black Americans to truly fight back on gigantic level, because there's no way possible that there's no way that Black Americans should not have their own MSNBC, should not have their own CNN type of major network. Now, again, there are certain supremacist roadblocks in the mix that they allow other type of minorities and people of color and all these other mixed in people playing these little tactics, right? So it's a very sinister game toward Black Americans. But again, Franck Zanu talking about Black Americans ain't got no culture. But here this guy, who this gentleman is, Dr. Claude Anderson, who is a super expert on Black American history and the economics. This guy knows so much on that. Let's just play this clip.
Native Blacks. And so that clearly, you talk about Native Blacks. And so that clearly sounds as if you are delineating Native Blacks versus someone that comes here from Bermuda or Jamaica or wherever they may they may come from that is Black.
That's right.
And the purpose of that is what? Because you're on the surface, it would be like, hey, everybody here that's Black gets treated a certain way. Why are you making that delineation?
That is an excellent point. You know why? Because you see, those people coming in from Jamaica or coming in from Africa, they have not been treated like Black folk in this country. That's the first thing. And secondly, historically, they haven't had those historical spirits. They come in here voluntarily. When they come in here, they bring some cultural aspects from Africa. They can go back anytime they want. But the Black people,
to a certain point, some of them, they know they better not go back, right? But overall, yes, numbers of them can go back, and many don't want to go back, right? They don't want to go back and help their own countrymen and countrywomen from their own tribes. They ain't thinking about that collective. I'm not talking about go back for half a second and do half a second thing. No, take their asses back, go over there, right? Go stomp out corruptibility from high political figures, right? Go stomp out poverty levels, extreme poverty levels. Go stomp out a lot of illegitimacy in educational, right? Go stomp all that stuff out. Go stomp out extreme malnutrition. Nope, they ain't gonna do that because they ain't got no power. Because they ain't nothing overall in their own countries. But they got the nerve to try to talk crazy about Black Americans. Man, they got
this country have exceptional people. Nobody's been mistreated, maltreated like them. Black folk are exceptional. They're the only people that came here forcefully. One. Two, they're the only people that denied their humanity. Three, they were the only people denied a right to enjoy the fruits of their labor. Four, they were the only people denied the right to participate in government. Five, they were the only people denied the right to vote. Six, they were the only people denied the right to have an education. Seven, they were the only people denied the right to have a business. Eight, they were the only people that participated in every war that this country has had since its founding, but whose mother country has never been against this country. All those immigrants come from countries where they fought America, and they came in. And the seven, that they are the oldest and most patriotic people in the country. Not the Confederates in the South. They're not the most patriotic people waving the Confederate flag. The most patriotic people in this country are Black people, Native Blacks, because you see 99% of all those Blacks have been direct descendants of slaves. They've been here before 99% of all the other people ever arrived in this country. They are special people. And because they are special people, they need to be recognized, appreciated, and reparated for what they've done in this country and building this country. They're the ones that built the bridges, the roads, cut the timber, the trees, and cleared the land, raised the tobacco, cotton, indigo. They're the people that fought in every war to protect this country. The people coming from Africa or coming from Jamaica didn't. They came here voluntarily. And the most important point on this is if you lump them with black folk, then you give the dominant white society a justification to say we don't owe black folk anything. Because you see, the blackness that's native, the blackness, black people's blackness is more than just color. It is their heritage, it's their history, it's their code of conduct, and more importantly, it is their badge of honor, and it's what it symbolizes the indebtedness that this country has to them. This country does not have an indebtedness to people coming from Africa. They don't have an indebtedness to people coming in from the Bahamas. If you lump black folk in there, you deprive black folk of the benefit, the debt that's owed them. Don't do that.
You talk about.
Well, he was super cooking, Dr. Claude Anderson, on that. He was cooking. And did he get, that was a simple, super masterclass on a very intricateness of which should be not complex. If you sit there trying to lump Black Americans into some genericality of just saying African, that is the insult to Black American ancestors who didn't sit there and die in this country because they were African. They died in being lynched, water hose down, numbers of them that died because of that, horses trample them and stuff like that, like they did in the great historical Selma, Alabama, in the 65, I think it was, that they didn't get trampled down and stuff like that. When even John Lewis got trampled down, they didn't do that to them because they're from Africa. Because again, it is a disgusting tactic that still, that people, Black Americans overall, still allow people to do this, to say the word generically African in the first place. You like, what part of Africa? Because again, there's various parts of Africa, people that don't want to call themselves Africans, right? And it's disgusting and is insulting to the American Black ancestors that didn't die in this country because they were Africans, right? They didn't sit there and fight against the hatefulness of Ku Klux Klan type people and like-minded people and fight against the supremacist system because they was from Africa. They fought because they were Black Americans, right? Now, whatever those different names, stuff like that, we're not going to play that tactic. In this present time, Black Americans is the correct terminology, not Afro-Americans, not African-Americans, because that is too diluted down. And again, to lump Black American people in some generic African category is disrespectful. Because again, how many cultures that come to Africa, be it from China, from again, India, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, you get the point. However, other countries and places can go to Africa, produce some babies, turn around, go to America, and then call themselves African American. That, man, get out of here with that. That is an archaic terminology. Now, for continental, however points, Africa would be the legitimate conversation. But as far as the historical reality, Africa was never called Africa by numbers of Africans themselves. You're like, what do you mean by that? Well, many different tribes would have been walking around calling themselves Africans. Let me say that last again. Many numbers of Africans that were sitting there doing anything in Africa, they would have been walking around calling themselves Africans. So then who named Africa? Oh, some people that do not still want to accept that part. So you say Pan-Africanism, there is a tenet, it's understandable, but the way Pan-African is, that's not Pan-Africanism. You like, again, how many people in Africa do not call themselves Africans on that? But again, I guess. So I think one of the last couple of things I want to show you, since Franck, despicable, parasitic, horsemouth, Zanu, Black Adjacent Hotter, Tether one, wants to act like Black American ain't got no history, right? And I've already showed you, obviously, what Black American obviously do have history. People know that. That should be beyond logical sense on that part. If a person doesn't know, then they ask numbers of Black Americans, or they look it up, or something, if they really want to know. But let's just look at this thing with Benin. I think got a couple of things I'm shutting it down for real on this. I'm definitely getting tired. I didn't think it's gonna go this long, but again, this is for timepiece purposes. Now let's look at Benin for a second. Again, this is not going. This is gonna be real quick. I think this is one or two I'm going to show, and I'm going to call it I'm going to call it the finishing show. But look at this right here. Hold on, give me a second. You can see that. Hold on. Okay. Oh, let me go back. Oh, hold on. Yes. Now, the Hunger Project. Now, the fleer, Franck Zanu, being a fleer, or his parents fled from Benin, right? Oh, dang it, wrong. Hit the wrong freaking button. Come on, dang it. Hold on. The wrong button. The wrong button. Give me a second here. Hit the wrong freaking button. I guess I'm getting too tired now. Give me a second. I got it back up now. 1 second here. Here we go. All right. Let me reshare my screen. See, since Franck Zanu, little parasitic black adjacent how to tether, got some nerves, right? Now let's see where some of his Beninists are. Again, I'm not talking about some of the good brothers and sisters of Benin, but we're talking about some reality here too as well. Now, you see this right here. It says, make sure my mute is off. Okay. The Hunger Project. All right. Let's just look at something here. Our work in Benin. Benin has emerged as a model of economic growth and democratic stability in West Africa. The country has made significant strides in infrastructure development, particularly in transportation and energy, enhancing connectivity and access to reliable electricity for its citizens. Investments in digital technology have transformed Benin into a regional hub for innovation. For whom? Additionally, improved governance and focus on education have empowered the new generation to contribute to the nation's bright future. Right. You mean for people that's going to be going to Benin a little bit more to try to get themselves involved in that, to do some kind of pseudo colonization, informal or directly, right? Or by some people who are behind the veils. Now, let's see some reality. Despite this progress, Benin stands as one of the poorest countries in the world. Let me repeat this again. Since peg mouth, Franck Zanu, parasitic, again, horse mouth, Franck Zanu, black Jason Hodder, tether, want to talk about black Americans, right? Who helped build America more than anybody else besides certain parts of the Anglo-ness predominant culture, right? That black Americans have been building America for generations before even many other Africans set foot in America. Because black Americans became their own unique culture, right? Again, I'm not talking about some of the good brothers and sisters, by the way. Now, despite the progress, Benin stands as one of the poorest countries in the world. Now, we're talking about 2025. See, that little tether, black Jason Hodder, violent horse mouth, Franck Zanu, right? Where his parents fled from Benin to a neighboring country because they couldn't do a damn thing in their own country that was doing their own war-torn conflict by higher tribalism that they couldn't fix. But this fool, Franck Zanu, makes sure not to talk about that. And he's sure not going to talk about the various parts of his tribalism type people, right? He ain't going to talk about Benin also being some of the most poorest country on this planet. So this fool got the nerve. See, he's one of those uncles. He's one of those Sambos of his tribe. That's a very dangerous type of tether. He got the nerve talking about black Americans, and black American ones that make minimum wage can go over to Benin and live gigantically great to whichever the minimum wage in Benin is. So this fool got a nerve to talk about black Americans, and he take his ass to Benin and tell them, you need to gigantically raise up Benin's minimum wage, right? They tell you don't shut your up. That's why he knows his ass better not ever go. He can never go back and tell nobody nothing in Benin, right? Because they know he's a Sambo, the ones who know him, right? This going there to back to Benin, doing a few little projects. They say that's fine, but he knows this place. He'll never go back and tell nobody nothing what the damn do because he's a fleer, right? He's not going to talk about Benin being some of the poorest countries on this planet, one of the poorest countries on this planet. The nerve of him. And again, when you look up the Benin demographics in the United States, it's not even on a dang scale, basically. That's how extremely minute the numbers of Benin type personnel in America is counted. They're like minute, under minute. So, lastly, again, despite the progress, Benin stands as one of the poorest countries in the world, with many rural communities facing extreme levels of hunger and poverty. Over 70% Benin's population relies on agriculture, leaving the people vulnerable to climate challenges like floods and droughts. Especially in rural communities, many children suffer from malnutrition and lack access to essential resources for healthy development. But you don't sit there and see Franck Horsemouth, parasitic, dangerous, Zanu talking about this, because he is a soul and bought out informant. He's dangerous, like some other black adjacent tethers like him. See, he's not going to talk about this on that. Many children suffer in Benin from malnutrition and lack access to essential resources for health development. But he got the nerve talking about Black Americans. Focus issues in Benin: poverty, much. It's not Black Americans, much. Much of Benin's population lives in poverty. Much means the majority. The majority of Black Americans are not in poverty, by the way. No, they're not. No, they're not. So he don't want to talk about, again, much of Benin's population lives in poverty, because he knows he's embarrassed, but had a nerve to open his horse mouth self up and talk about Black Americans. And that they have limited access to basic social services like education, healthcare, sanitation. The lack of resources and opportunities for economic growth intensifies these conditions, particularly in rural Benin. Hunger, food insecurity is a severe issue in Benin. You see that yourself, right? Hunger, food insecurity is a severe issue in Benin. Many families rely on subsistence agriculture, which often fails to meet basic food needs. Man, I would want to hear nothing from that horse mouth piece of cow juice head, Franck Zanu, Black Adjacent Tether Hotter. This is talking about from the Hunger Project. You see, this is an embarrassment, and he wants to talk about Black Americans. So he's lucky that it's not enough Black Americans. I'll sit there seeing a few Black Americans that roast him. It's not enough, because there are some people on some gigantic social medias that should be roasting the living snap out of him, right? And call for his cancellation, right? But it's not going to happen overall. I think, did I have one last thing? Yes, this is one last thing I'm going to show, and show that his freaking hypocrisy, right? This is the last thing here on this little hateful little troll pond of Franck Zanu, with his anti-Black American hatred, and the nerve of him also having some hatred toward his own type of African counterparts. That's a very dangerous combination. So let me show this one last screen that shows, to put it also in perspective, about his hypocrisy, as if Benin got it going on like that. Again, I'm not talking about some good brothers and sisters of Benin who know who they are, right? But we're just being shown reality, because there's a sellout Sambo in their mix of Franck Zanu. I mean, the nerve of him to be a fleer, or his mom and dad being a fleer, right? And he gets a chance to flee over to America, later on in life, as he goes to different other places and slides under, coming to America under the people of color, generic communities of color, minority banner, right? Gets to go to school under the how of that flag, right? Gets to sit there on that genericality, gets a, I don't know if he got a full ride scholarship or whatever he got, right? That's off the backs of Black Americans that Black Americans should have got that, right? I guess in Connecticut he went to, right? And how many of those places up and down those northern areas participated in gigantic amount of slavery, that they had slavery going up and down those northern coasts over there, northeast coast, right? It wasn't just the South. You got many numbers of places up and down that northeast part that participated in the enslavement of Black Americans, right? Many people don't even know that part. Now, rank the 50 poorest countries by GDP per capita in 2025. Again, this is the last thing I want to show, because this thing went over almost whatever long it's been over, 2 hours and some minutes. I definitely think it's going to go this long, but again, that's all right, because I'm not going to talk about him again in this kind of way. But I want you to at least have a timepiece purpose, because maybe down the road somebody takes a look at this, scan through the videos, wherever it is, because I also have other videos on my Real CP podcast and stuff like that. So if anybody's interested, if they decide to like or do some subscribing, if they want to, if not, just to take a look at some videos if they so choose to. But on the Real CP show, I might try to show, unless I forget, because this is the last thing. Under the live tab, it shows many live tabs. On the videos tab, it has different things as well. But right here, rank the 50 poorest countries by GDP per capita on this, because again, this is the last one, and this also puts in perspective, and it shows the hypocrisy of the horse mouth, horse head Franck Zanu, who's very parasitic and very deadly in his anti-American Black hatred, and has the nerve also to talk some stuff about his own African counterparts that I showed earlier, especially when he's talking to some of the young African brothers and sisters he was talking to, that he thought he was trying to put some intelligence, stuff like that, but he made himself look like he was thought he was better than them on that situation. But again, on the demographics of Benin, the demographics in the U.S. of Benin type people, it's not even almost measurable. That's how minute it is. So he's embarrassed at that, right? But he wants to be so Angloized so bad, right, that he thinks he's Anglo. So let's look at some of the 50 poorest countries by GDP 2025. I'm not going to read all this on this. South Sudan, but is that not in Africa? Benin's in Africa. Is he jumping up down South Sudan and trying to help them out? No. Yemen is opposite of that Red Sea area across from the eastern part of Africa coast. Burundi, is that not in Africa? Can you see this green part? Shows Africa. Orange part says Asia. Or whatever this is, this teal green, whatever this is. So the whole point, you see all this, that same color. So you keep that in mind, keep that in mind with horse mouth, horse head, Franck Zanu, right? That fled from Benin, from people that look like him when they was having some more war-torn conflict going on not a long time ago. And himself, he fled when he was a baby, or his parents fled to the neighboring country. He fled. So he has a nerve in his audacity to talk about Black Americans. Burundi's in Africa. Franck Zanu ain't trying to go there and help somebody out. Huh? Where's his Pan-Africanism at? Pan-Africanism at? Central African Republic. Right? And then Africa, Malawi, Madagascar, outside of Africa and the islands, Sudan, Mozambique, Democratic Republic of Congo, Niger, Somalia, Nigeria, which is a whole different topic in itself, right? Liberia, Sierra Leone, Mali, the Gambia, Chad, Rwanda, Togo, Ethiopia, Lesotho, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Myanmar, so that'd be in the Asian part, Tanzania, Zambia, Uganda, Tajikistan, Nepal, Timor-Leste, Benin. Some of the poorest countries on the planet. He has the nerve to talk about Black Americans. Then won't he sit there and go over to these various countries and tell them, y'all need to get your stuff together, right? They'd be like, man, you don't take your horse head mouth looking self somewhere else, right? Because Africa includes what, hundreds of languages, serve 100 tribes. They'd be like, man, I don't know what kind of tribe you come from. You better take yourself back somewhere else. He knows better, but he knows that Black Americans don't really study history overall. Too many other different things to be thinking about, right? Because the more Black Americans study the history, in various parts of Africa, then it'll be a whole different change, because then you have some Black adjacent tethers, because this system in America, they want more Black adjacent tethers to flee from the country to come over to America to use them as a buffer, right? To give them resources, right? To put them in various type of political positions. That's happening now. To infiltrate numbers of Black organizations, that's happening now, right? It's a hardcore game. So you saw already what I showed, the 50 poorest countries by GDP per capita in 2025, and you saw Benin was on that list. So the nerve of this horsehead fool of Franck, parasitic, horse cow head, dangerous Zanu, and his anti-American Black hatred, and even his hatred towards numbers of his supposed to be his numbers of African counterparts, is a very dangerous combination. And when I was sitting there saying, and lastly, that give me a second. Let me try to put it out. Give me a second. Let me do this for a second. I wanted to show something for a second. Oh, give me a second. Homepage. Dang it. Hold on. I can't do that now. Well, no, won't be able to do. Well, it's okay. Well, I just want to sit there. Well, actually, let me sit there and just show something for a second. So this is my. Let me just sit there and share my screen on it. This is the last thing I want to show. I wanted to show something else, but I'm not gonna be able to do it. I don't think I am. But for people that's interested, this is my homepage. Again, this is the last thing. As you see already, this is what the real CP show. You see the number of videos. So this ain't something that I just started doing on that part. And you see right now the Franck Zanu, whatever that name, last name, the hateful anti-American Black Benin fleer, they are getting too bold, which is it's kind of a wild look on that. That's live right now on that situation. But these are some of the videos on my homepage. This is some videos on that. This is a good one. What are white supremacists doing now, which is actually a pretty good one. But remember, Black Americans, I just popped on man, but remember, Black Americans ain't got no history, right? What did it say? Black history, lost, stolen, or straight, 1968. Black Americans ain't no history. Dr. King, why Black Americans face more. Hold on. You know what? Let me put this for a second. Give me a second.
What is it about the Negro? I mean, every other group that came as an immigrant somehow, not easily, but somehow got around it. Is it just the fact that Negroes are Black?
White America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. Ethnic group has been a slave. Ethnic group has been a slave. See that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma. America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base,
Either Frank Cowhead Zanu, parasitic, dangerous, peasant head, Franck Zanu, anti-American blackness. Either he knows this, and he's being very mischievous, or he doesn't know, which makes him also dangerous to shouldn't have the nerve talking about Black Americans and try to have that little Black American got no culture, Black Americans are complaining. And what does the great MLK saying? That this system made sure to give numbers of white immigrants basically free land that they fled themselves while Black Americans are still building up this country. But Black Americans ain't got no culture. Black Americans are lazy. You don't go to hell for the ones who the ones that try to play that tactic on that.
And yet it refused to give its Black peasants from Africa who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years.
Well, it meant what became Black Americans. So that's a little different situation I disagree with, that they were Black Americans.
Any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps. But it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
So I guess, I wanted to, hold on for a second. I wanted to stop that for a second on that. So I guess old horsehead, parasitic, very dangerous Franck Zanu, anti-American Black, hatred for even of his own African counterpart. I guess if the great Martin Luther King was alive, I guess he would argue with him, about the Black painters that has been going for so long to American Blacks, not because they were from Africa, not because they were sitting there from certain parts of the Caribbean, because they were Black Americans. Because around 1970 to 1980s, when you look at what we call African immigrants, again, I'm not talking about some of the good brothers and sisters out there, their population would have been small. Yes. From 2000, about 2025, right, is when there was a giganticness of ascending of various African immigrants being allowed to come to America. The one this applies to, that's going to be overallness, with very few exceptions. They're allowed to come over to be a buffer to be against Black Americans, or to sit there and keep themselves in their little enclaves, right? And pop in and pop out a little bit, and someone play some people of color, minority, go back in there and do their thing, and they popping out babies left and right, and then bam, they sit there and get automatic citizenship too. Off of Black, their babies get automatic citizenship 2, 3, 4, 5, right? The ones it applies to, just like various parts of certain sections of Hispanicism and some other people, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids, etc. Bam, automatic citizenship. Bam, automatic Medicaid for the kids, right? You see how that game goes. Bam, they're trying to get chain migration, right? Bring over however other different cultures, stuff like that. So I know that game extremely well. You see, if more Black Americans understood that game, there would have to be an uproar, right? It would have to be. See, Black Americans can go having babies left, right in Africa, and all of a sudden they become Africa. Because how many people in Africa the one supplies to who know I'm telling the truth? They be like, hey, who is Jawaman? Where's he from? Some of this little kid. But the parents, no, he was born, he's African. No. Where's he from? Well, he's African. Where y'all from? We're African now. We're over here now. We got citizenship. We're African. They be like, no, you're really not. You see how that goes, right? You see how that goes. The ones who would do this. Just I'm telling the game is very strong on that situation. So I was trying to finish up and and sure I had to stop that screen for a second. But what I was trying to show. Let me go back here. Hold on for a second. Yeah, dang it. Let me a second here. Get out of here. Okay. Oh, there we go. Let me go back here. All right. So I'll make sure you can see this. Man, here we go. So again, this is my main page, Real CP Show. The show is live right now. It's very interesting on that. How it looks. My live tab shows the different shows that got coming up on this part, which, this can be a good show too, probably too. In Kenya's various internal chaos, many citizens fighting for some other things going on. And this show Mexicans that have the hypocrisy telling Mexicans that have hypocrisy telling gringos in Mexico areas, basically to go back on that, go back to their land, which is funny because of numbers of Hispanic personnel, numbers of Mexican people that's being deported, and they're getting mad. So you get the hypocrisy on that. So there's some other different topic shows and stuff like that. But I wanted to show this hypocrisy as far as certain types of personnel from certain parts of Africa, the ones applies to, but especially people like Frank, parasitic, dangerous anti-American black hatred, right? With his own self-hatred internal of his own type of African personnel, right? All this other stuff happening by various parts of Anglo hatred and stuff like this, their anger, right? Their viral violency. He's not going to talk about stuff like that, right? He knows better not to talk about numbers of Anglos. He knows better, right? This some of the things here. But this is a thing I wanted to show. Well, hold on. That's not where. Hold on for a second. Hold on for a second. Let me see. Let me have a chance to show it. This is the last thing I'm going to show. Give me a second here. Right here. This Nigerian national was convicted of transnational inheritance fraud. You don't talk about that. Multiple Nigerian stowaways were thrown overboard in the ocean. This Nigerian man got remanded, slapped by his Anglo girlfriend. Right? Oh, so he ain't gonna talk about stuff like that. Oh, these other supposed to be model minorities. This India from India in America got his remand card because he was accused of doing some heinous stuff on that situation. Which is a whole different thing here. The Carmelo Anthony, bad Negro, and Austin Metcalf, good Anglo boy, which is a whole different topic in itself. The hatred toward American blacks in general, how they made Austin Metcalf, the little Anglo boy, with his brother, saying like they were some kind of angelic people, and they were not on that situation. On that, this missionary wife, Anglo wife, connected to a murder hire plot by some personnel in Africa. This particular person placed in Africa on that. See, he won't talk about that. He won't talk about Robert Brooks, the anti-American black terrorism toward him. He got stumped, right, by these Anglo-adjacent ones, right? He don't want to talk about stuff like that. How about this? This Anglo woman preschool teacher that robbed a 3-year-old child. He won't talk about stuff like that. He won't talk about a black teen in LA was racially attacked by Hispanics at an LA high school. He won't talk about that. He knows better. He won't talk about an Anglo woman perv, former teacher, director of a Catholic school. She sexually did something to a kid or kids. He won't talk about stuff like that, right? See, he knows better to talk about certain people within predominate culture. He knows better to talk about some other things, right? How about this? St. Patrick's Day, ours, U.S., celebrate. Oh, I'm going on. That's not the one I'm talking about. An Asian woman, Julia, not even trusting this Asian couple. He don't want to talk about stuff like that. What about this Anglo adjacent woman involved in a home invasion plot, manipulated his mail to do some stuff? This black couple, both veterans, got their KKK remand. He don't want to talk about stuff like that, right? How about this? This multi-million gift card scam by these Asian ones. He don't want to talk about that. How about this? 2 black American girls racially terrorized at this Asian gift store. He won't talk about that, right? How about this Asian male pedophile, a former teacher against a male, some kind of male? How about this? A black male that was tased and humiliated by this a Caucasian woman, DEI version. He won't talk about that. How about this black American male that was put in prison for 28 years? He was finally free for something he did not do. See, Franck Zanu don't want to talk about that. Oh my goodness, black Americans always complaining. He don't want to talk about things like this, right? But this 80th anniversary liberation at Auschwitz concentration camp, right? He know he better not tell them, because it's dealing with some Jewish people and some other people that was at Auschwitz, which I think was in Poland and some parts of Germany. Also, on that they had an 80th anniversary of remembrance not too long ago. I bet he better not tell them to get over the past. You see how this game goes on this. So these are just some of the other videos I've had on here. Billions more going to Ukraine for reparations, right? Which is an insult, but he won't tell them, what are you doing? Y'all need no more reparations. So you get the point that this guy, Franck Zanu, is a very dangerous black adjacent tether, because he's not going to talk about other type people doing type of heinous things, especially within certain parts of predominate culture, because he knows better on that, right? He knows better. So I thank you for tuning in to the Real CP show. And by the way, he certainly will not talk about this right here.
Who walked out of the Democratic convention formed their own party.
The Southern revolt against President Truman reaches its climax at Birmingham under the states' rights banner.
The so-called Dixiecrats nominated the South Carolina governor Strom Thurmond as their presidential candidate.
There's not enough troops in the army to force the Southern people to break down segregation and admit the Negro race into our theaters, into our swimming pools, into our homes, and into our churches.
We don't want to talk about that. It wasn't just a certain number of Democrats. How many of the Republicans that had a hatred for black Americans also in the 1940s? That he wasn't even born, Franck Zanu. If he was, he'd have been an infant. And he certainly wasn't in America. He was not in America in 1940s, because either he was not born or he was an infant. Because 1940s to 2025, what is that? What is that? 70s plus years? He doesn't look like he's in his 70s. If he's in his 70s, he would have been an infant. And he still wouldn't have been in America then in the 1940s. So this fool got the nerve to talk about American Black history that he knows nothing about. So I thank you for tuning in to the Real CP show.